Most of the suffering in the world doesn't come from natural disasters or random bad luck. It comes from human beings absolutely sure they're right. Wars, divorces, culture wars, family feuds, workplace drama, online screaming matches, broken friendships, ideological violence. Underneath almost all of it, you find the same engine. I'm right. I know I'm right. And if you disagree, you must be wrong, stupid, evil, or broken. The main problem in the world is not just disagreement, but unexamined certainty. People clinging to their views as obviously correct, rarely checking if they might be mistaken. And when they do check, they only look in places that prove them right. 1. The hidden religion of I'm right. Most people believe they have a religion, or a political party, or a worldview, or a philosophy. But behind all of that is a deeper, mostly invisible belief system. The religion of I'm right. It works like this. My opinions feel correct. My memories feel accurate. My perspective feels like reality itself, not just one angle on it. Therefore, if you disagree with me, you must be missing something. This is so deep that we don't even notice it. We don't think, I'm a person with limited information, emotional baggage, cognitive biases, and a tiny slice of reality filtered through my nervous system. We think, I just see things how they are. This illusion has a name in psychology: naive realism. It's the sense that I see the world as it is, other people see it through distortions. Everyone has that feeling. So almost everyone walks around as if they have a private, direct connection to truth that others are lacking. The result? Two people can look at the same event and see two completely different realities. And each one will be convinced that they are just objectively observing what's happening. The problem isn't that people have different viewpoints. That's inevitable. The problem is that almost nobody holds their viewpoint with the thought, this feels right to me, but I might be wrong. Instead, we have, this feels right to me, so it is right. That one tiny shift in internal attitude makes the difference between arguments versus conversations, war versus negotiation, stubborn stagnation versus collective learning. 2. Why being right feels so good. The I'm right feeling isn't just an idea, it's a drug. When we feel correct, the world makes sense. We feel competent and in control. Our identity feels stable. Good, I know who I am and what I stand for. We feel superior to the confused or misguided people around us. We get validation from others who agree. Yes, you're right, we see it too. Uncertainty, by contrast, feels weak, vulnerable, exposed, anxious. There's a deep animal part of the brain that hates uncertainty. In the wild, uncertainty could mean danger. Is that a predator? You don't want to stand there and debate. You want to decide, quickly, and act. Fast forward to today, there are no lions in the living room, but the same machinery is still running. So we cling to certainty about politics, religion, morality, relationships, our own memories, our own self-image, our fears about others' intentions. We'd rather feel sure and wrong than feel unsure and possibly right. 3. The cognitive bias factory. Most people think their mind is a camera recording reality. It's not. It's a movie studio that selects scenes, edits out inconvenient footage, adds music and narration, color grades the story to fit a pre-existing script. I'm right, the world makes sense, my group is good, the other side is bad. This editing is not conscious. It's done through cognitive biases, systematic thinking errors, baked into the way our brains process information. You already mentioned one of the biggest ones, confirmation bias. 3.1. Confirmation bias is our tendency to seek out evidence that supports what we already believe, ignore or downplay evidence that contradicts it, interpret ambiguous evidence in a way that favors our existing view. If you believe people are basically selfish, you'll notice every rude driver, every greedy boss, every betrayal, and you'll forget the stranger who held the door, the friend who checked on you, the thousands of quiet kindnesses. If you believe my partner doesn't really care about me, you'll notice the one time they didn't reply fast enough and ignore the 100 times they did. In the age of the internet, confirmation bias gets weaponized. We can follow only accounts that agree with us, join groups that reinforce our worldview, watch videos that tell us, you were right all along. We call that an echo chamber, but the first echo chamber is inside our own skull. 3.2. Motivated reasoning, when logic becomes a lawyer. We like to pretend we use logic to get to the truth. Often we use logic like a lawyer uses arguments, not to discover the truth, but to defend what we already want to believe. That's motivated reasoning. We start with a conclusion we emotionally prefer. My group is the good one. I'm a good person. My worldview is correct. Then our brain goes shopping for reasons to justify that conclusion. If evidence supports our side, see, this proves it. If evidence seems to contradict our side, that's biased, fake, cherry-picked, or taken out of context. We feel like we're being rational, but we're actually acting like a defense attorney hired by our ego. 3.3. The Dunning-Kruger effect, when the least informed are most certain. Another twist, people who know the least about a topic are often the most confident. This is the Dunning-Kruger effect in action. When you know very little, you don't even know what you don't know. The topic looks simple, so you feel like you understand it. As you learn more, you suddenly see how deep and complex it is. Your confidence actually drops as your knowledge increases. So ironically, the one screaming with total certainty online might be the one who's barely scratched the surface. The quiet expert might be the one saying, "It's complicated." That sounds like weakness, but it's actually a sign of deeper understanding. The modern world rewards the loud, not the careful, and we confuse volume with truth. 4. Identity. When beliefs become me. It would be less dangerous if beliefs were just ideas we tried on, like clothes. But most people fuse their beliefs with their identity. I am a conservative or liberal. I am a Christian or atheist. I am pro this or anti that. I am the kind of person who... So when a belief is challenged, it feels like you're saying I am wrong, which means I am bad, which means I am unsafe. From the nervous system's point of view, it's almost like being attacked. No wonder people get defensive, raise their voice, insult or mock the other side, shut down emotionally, storm out of the room or the comment section. If a belief is me, then letting go of that belief feels like death. The mind clings to it for dear life. We rarely say, I believe X, but I might change my mind. We say, silently or out loud, I am X. Once beliefs become identity, error correction becomes nearly impossible. 5. Tribalism. My team, right or wrong. Humans are tribal animals. In ancient times, belonging to a tribe was literally a matter of survival. Alone, you die. In a group, you eat, reproduce, and stay safe. That instinct hasn't gone anywhere. Today, our tribes are nations, political parties, religions, fandoms, subcultures, online communities, even brands. Each tribe comes with a shared story. Who we are, who the enemy is, what we stand for, what is sacred to us, what cannot be questioned. Once a belief is tied to tribal membership, the cost of changing your mind isn't just, I was wrong, it's, will my tribe still accept me? Will I be mocked, shunned, disowned? Will I lose my community, my family, my sense of belonging? So when facts threaten a tribe's core narrative, people will often deny the facts, attack the source, reinterpret reality, invent new stories to protect the old one. Truth becomes less important than loyalty. My group can't be wrong. Therefore, anything that says we're wrong must be false. This is how entire civilizations can march confidently into disaster. 6. Memory. A useful liar. We also trust our memories as if they were video recordings. They're not. They are stories, reconstructed on the fly. We remember the parts that fit our narrative, we blur or erase the parts that don't. Details change over time as they're retold. So if I have a story about myself like, I'm a good, reasonable person who is usually right, my memory will quietly edit events to support that story. I will remember when I predicted something correctly, forget the times I was totally wrong, remember when others were unfair, forget when I was unfair. When we argue with others, we're often throwing different movies at each other and insisting ours is the documentary. I remember it clearly. No, I remember it clearly.
And both people really do feel certain. But feeling certain and being correct are not the same thing. 7. Why we rarely ask, could I be wrong? If everyone walking around is this biased, mistaken, emotional, and limited, why don't we regularly ask, okay, but what if I'm wrong? Because that question threatens too many things at once. 7.1. It threatens our sense of control. If I'm wrong, then maybe I don't understand the world as well as I thought. Maybe I've been making bad decisions. Maybe I've hurt people without meaning to. That's heavy. So instead of facing that, we cling harder to certainty. 7.2. It threatens our self-esteem. Many of us were raised in environments where being right equals being worthy. In school, right answers equals good kid, wrong answers equals bad grade. In families, agree with us equals accepted, question us equals problem child. In religious contexts, right belief equals saved, wrong belief equals doomed. No wonder admitting error feels like shame. We secretly believe, if I was wrong, then something is wrong with me. So we'd rather distort reality than take that ego hit. 7.3. It threatens our social bonds. If I change my mind publicly, I might lose status, followers, money, friendships, a sense of who I belong with. Better to double down than to risk exile. 8. The cost. How certainty destroys relationships. When I'm right is more important than let's understand each other, relationships become battlegrounds. 8.1. Friendships. Two friends disagree on something big: politics, vaccines, spirituality, morality, a shared past event. Instead of, okay, let's slow down, really listen and see where our views differ, it becomes, you're brainwashed, you're ignorant, you used to be smarter than this. I can't believe you think that. The underlying message is, if you don't share my reality, you're no longer my kind of person. Friendships quietly die, not because of the disagreement itself, but because each side values being right more than staying connected. 8.2. Couples. In intimate relationships, the I'm right problem becomes microscopic and constant. You did say that. No, I didn't. You always twist things. You always remember it wrong. Each person is absolutely certain their memory is accurate, their interpretation is correct, their feelings are justified. Instead of, let's assume both of us are seeing part of the truth, let's try to stitch our perspectives together, it becomes, there's only one true version of what happened, mine. Small conflicts turn into long-term resentment. The relationship becomes less about shared reality and more about competing stories. 8.3. Families. Generations clash. Parents and children, siblings, extended family. Everyone has a different narrative about what actually happened in childhood. Who hurt whom? Who sacrificed what? Who was the problem? Almost nobody approaches it with, my memory might be incomplete. My role might not be as innocent as I tell myself. So wounds stay unhealed. People die still convinced, I was the good one. They just never saw it. 9. The cost, how certainty destroys relationships. Now zoom out to the level of society. We face massive challenges: climate change, inequality, war, health crises, technological risks, corruption, broken institutions. To solve them, we'd need humility, open dialogue, willingness to change our minds, ability to learn from other perspectives, trust in shared processes for discovering truth. Instead, we often have political tribes absolutely convinced they are all that stands between civilization and collapse, media ecosystems built to confirm what each audience already believes, leaders rewarded for unwavering certainty, not thoughtful revision, citizens who treat other citizens as enemies instead of co-problem solvers. If each side believes we are obviously correct, they are dangerous and deluded, to compromise with them is betrayal, how can we negotiate, find nuanced solutions, correct mistakes, change course when something isn't working? We can't. We lock into a kind of epistemic civil war where the main battle isn't over policy, but over who gets to define reality. 10. The illusion of proof. You brought up a powerful point. Even when people do check their beliefs, they do it through their cognitive biases and end up finding evidence that proves themselves right. This is one of the most dangerous illusions, the idea that I have proof and therefore I am beyond questioning. 10.1. Evidence isn't neutral. Evidence doesn't walk up to us and announce its meaning. We choose which evidence to look at, decide which sources we trust, interpret what it means, weigh some facts more than others. Two people can look at the exact same data and come out with opposite conclusions because they started with different assumptions, trust different authorities, see the world through different emotional filters. But both walk away saying, the evidence clearly supports my view. 10.2. Cherry picking. If I want to prove almost anything, I can search for phrases that support my idea, ignore all contrary information, compile a list of quotes, articles, charts, testimonials that say what I want them to say. Then I hold that stack up and say, look, I'm not just opinionated, I'm informed. But being informed is not the same as being fair. Most people don't ask, what is the strongest argument against my view? What evidence would change my mind? Am I giving other viewpoints the same scrutiny I give my own? Instead, they're happy as long as they can say the magic words, I've done my research, which often just means I've searched long enough to find things that make me feel right.
11. How the internet supercharges the problem. The human brain was always biased. The internet plugged that brain into an amplifier. 11.1. Instant validation. At any moment, you can post your opinion, find others who agree, get likes, shares, hearts, applause. If 5,000 people agree, it feels like proof. But numbers don't equal truth. They equal popularity. A flat earth post, a conspiracy theory, a wild rumor can go viral not because it's true, but because it's emotionally satisfying and easy to understand. 11.2. Infinite choice of realities. We can now choose our news, our sources, our expert commentators, our heroes and villains. We can live in such carefully curated informational bubbles that we never encounter a serious version of the opposing view. We only see twisted caricatures of the other side. We become sincerely convinced that everyone who thinks X must be insane. Each person sits inside a custom-made reality tunnel, certain they're seeing the whole map, not realizing it's just one filter among many. 12. Personal suffering, the inner war of I must be right. It's easy to see the global consequences, but this I'm right addiction also quietly tortures individuals. 12.1 Constant defensiveness. If I must always be right, then every disagreement feels like a threat. Every correction feels like humiliation. Every mistake feels like a crisis. I can't genuinely relax. I'm always ready to justify, explain, argue, or prove. 12.2 Stunted growth. To grow, you need feedback. But if my core belief is, I am fundamentally right about how I see things, then feedback becomes something to dodge, something to reinterpret, something to discredit. I never get to say, wow, I was really wrong about that. I'm glad I learned. I stay stuck, repeating the same patterns, living the same problems, blaming everyone else. 12.3 Self-deception. The scariest lies are the ones we tell ourselves. If I must always be right, I will minimize my own flaws, rationalize hurtful behavior, rewrite history in my favor, treat my emotional reactions as objective measurements of reality. I feel hurt, therefore you were wrong. I feel angry, therefore you were unjust. I feel scared, therefore you must be dangerous. Feelings become courtroom verdicts instead of internal signals. 14. Why this might be the main problem. You ask specifically about this being the main problem in the world. There are many huge problems: poverty, war, corruption, hatred, greed. But notice how often they depend on this deeper pattern. Greed. I deserve this more than others. My story about what I'm entitled to is correct. Corruption. The rules aren't fair to me anyway. I'm justified in bending the rules. My rationalization is correct. Hatred and prejudice. My group is superior. My stereotypes are accurate. My belief about those people is correct. War. We are defending what is right. They are the aggressors. Our view of the conflict is correct. Theirs is propaganda. Fanaticism. This ideology is absolute truth. Any compromise would be immoral. I am correct even if the whole world disagrees. Almost every large-scale human disaster involves people who are intensely certain of their correctness. It's rare to see a genocide, a holy war, a brutal regime, or a violent revolution led by someone saying, "Look, we might be wrong about a lot of this. Let's keep questioning ourselves." The more convinced we are of our own absolute correctness, the more dangerous we become, to others and to ourselves. 14. The alternative, epistemic humility. So if the main problem is everyone thinks their views are correct and rarely checks, what would the opposite look like? Something like epistemic humility. Humility about what we know and how we know it. It's not self-hatred. It's not walking around saying, "I'm stupid and I know nothing." It's more like, my perspective is limited. My mind is biased. I'm very capable of being wrong with total confidence. My feelings are real, but they're not a perfect guide to reality. Other people see things I can't see from where I'm standing. This attitude changes the whole style of thinking. Instead of trying to win arguments, you try to see more reality. Instead of forcing your story on everything, you let the world push back and reshape your story. Instead of clinging, you hold beliefs with an open hand. 14.1. Strong opinions loosely held. You can still have opinions. You can still care deeply about things. Humility doesn't mean passivity. It looks more like, based on everything I've seen so far, this seems true to me. But if new evidence or better reasoning appears, I'm willing to update. That tiny willingness to update separates a sane society from a fanatic one. 15. Practicing I might be wrong. If we wanted to attack this main problem in ourselves, what would it look like practically? Here are some internal habits. 15.1. Ask the hard question. When you feel very certain, and especially when you feel very emotionally charged, ask, what if I'm wrong about this? What would it look like if the opposite were true? Is there any evidence that makes me uncomfortable because it doesn't fit my story? Just asking these questions loosens the grip of automatic certainty. 15.2. Seek the strongest opposing view. Instead of looking for the dumbest version of the other side, the straw man, seek the smartest, most thoughtful version, the steel man. Read the best arguments against your position, not just the bad ones. Talk to people who disagree but are calm, kind, and informed. Ask them, what do you think I'm missing? This doesn't guarantee you'll change your mind, but it does guarantee you'll understand the issue more deeply. 15.3. Separate identity from ideas. Practice telling yourself, this belief is not me. If I change my mind, I'm not betraying myself, I'm evolving. My worth as a person is not measured by how often I've been right in the past. The less fused your identity is with your beliefs, the easier it becomes to update them. 15.4. Admit small wrongs frequently. The ego hates being wrong, so give it practice reps in low-stakes situations. You know what? I misremembered that. You're right, I spoke too soon. Good point. My first take on that wasn't accurate. The more normal it becomes to admit error, the less terrifying it is when something bigger comes along. 16. Imagining a world that questions itself. Imagine a world where a critical mass of people regularly says, I might be wrong, genuinely listens before responding, is more interested in what's true than how do I win, sees disagreement as a chance to update, not a threat. What would change? Fewer wars launched on the basis of absolute certainty? Less polarization because each side would admit some blind spots. Healthier science, politics, media, and spiritual communities that can self-correct. More honest relationships where people work collaboratively to reconstruct shared reality instead of competing to prove the other wrong. Individuals who grow faster because they're willing to examine their stories. We can't get rid of bias or limitation, but we can become aware of them and build cultures that don't reward blind certainty. 17. Why most people won't do this. If this kind of humility is so powerful, why don't most people adopt it? Because it's slower and less dramatic than certainty. It doesn't always feel good in the moment. It doesn't get as many clicks, likes, or applause. It asks you to sit in the discomfort of, I don't fully know. And the world currently rewards confidence over accuracy, outrage over nuance, slogans over subtlety, and tribal loyalty over independent thinking. So, the culture reinforces the very problem we're talking about. 18. Starting where we actually have control. We don't control governments, social media algorithms, school systems, religious institutions, news networks. We do control how we listen, how we argue, how often we question our own story,
How we respond when someone triggers our defensiveness. Whether we see disagreement as a threat or an opportunity. The main problem in the world is global, but the entry point is painfully personal. The problem is everyone thinks they're right, secretly including me. That last part is the doorway out of the trap. 19. A short, blunt summary. To pull it all together. Human brains are wired to feel right, not to be right. We rarely question our beliefs because being right feels safe, powerful, and tied to our identity and our tribe. Even when we check the evidence, we often do it through confirmation bias and motivated reasoning, guaranteeing that we'll mostly find support for what we already believed. This unexamined certainty destroys relationships, freezes personal growth, fuels tribal conflict, makes societies unable to course correct, sits underneath many other major problems like war, hatred, corruption, and fanaticism. The antidote isn't self-loathing, but epistemic humility. I might be wrong. My view is partial. I'm willing to update. If enough individuals practiced that, not as a slogan, but as a daily mental habit, many of the world's other big problems would become dramatically easier to handle.